HOAs are closing on homes, foreclosing on homes faster and more often than ever before. And it's not because of what you think. Not only are things getting more expensive and more difficult financially for the everyday home buyer, but HOAs are struggling as well, primarily because of outstanding dues, maintenance costs. Everything is getting more expensive, and HOAs are also feeling the pressure. But imagine that. Imagine you get a letter in the mail for not cutting your grass. And a few months later, you get a notice that your home is being foreclosed on by your HOA. How shocked would you be? In today's video, we're going to talk about it. A recent article spoke about how HOAs are foreclosing on homes at a higher percent than ever before. And today we're going to chat about it a bit more. Unpaid dues, outstanding assessments, rising insurance costs. All these are the main reasons HOAs are becoming much more aggressive with starting the process for foreclosing on people's homes. Now, there was a recent article I did a while ago where they're putting some laws in place to really cap how much an HOA can charge for their HOA dues and making the process a bit more formal for HOAs to go through the foreclosure process. But according to this recent article, they are moving into the foreclosure process much more quickly than ever before because HOAs are also feeling the financial pressure to keep up with dues, assessments, and rising costs just to maintain a community. But the unpaid dues are really at the top of the list. My name is Taj Walker. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you're looking for a real estate or looking to get connected to a real estate professional in your area, I got your back. Go ahead and scan the QR code that pops up on the video here, or scan the QR or click the link in the description below. Love to connect you and happy to connect you with a real estate professional who is vetted and experienced in your local market so that you have someone to work with who is professional on your home buying or selling journey. Looking forward to connecting with you. Fill out that link, fill out the form, click the link here, and someone will be in touch with you to connect you with an agent in your local market. Homeowners are struggling to keep up with rising costs. HOAs are struggling to keep up with rising costs. And HOAs are increasingly turning to liens and foreclosures to collect their money faster and more efficiently, which is putting a pinch on the everyday homeowner. According to ATTOM, the data cited in the article, and by Fox Business, HOA related foreclosures are increasing by nearly 40%, by nearly 40% compared to 2 years earlier. That is huge. Again, I keep thinking about putting myself in this situation. If my mailbox has some chipped paint or I need to replace it, and to end up having my home foreclosed on for that is unimaginable and quite ridiculous. HOA foreclosures are reportedly increasing faster than overall mortgage foreclosure rates, according to the Fox Business News article. And it is getting out of hand. It is getting out of hand. HOAs are already, a lot of folks have mixed opinions about HOAs. I think HOAs have their benefits, have their pros, but also they're quite, they're quite irritating sometimes. They're quite irritating. They sometimes can be very petty. And a lot of folks who are overseeing HOAs have a really big head. They put themselves on a pedestal with a little bit of power, and they sometimes abuse that power, which can be very irritating for the folks in that community. But to transition and move towards foreclosure so quickly is really quite interesting. 40% higher than it's ever been in the past 2 years. We're used to thinking about foreclosures in terms of unpaid taxes, upside down on your mortgage. You wouldn't think that you would go through the foreclosure process because of your HOA. But homeowners could potentially be current on their mortgage while falling behind on a small HOA bill and potentially lose their home. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? This one's caught my eye because HOAs are becoming more and more of a headache than they are a benefit to many communities. Now, keep in mind, HOAs have their benefits. maintaining a standard for the community, maintaining your resale value as you get closer to selling, keeping a certain standard in your community, right? Having a formal process to keep things in order. Sometimes HOAs also cover things that you don't have the time and you don't want to cover. Exterior maintenance, lawn maintenance, street maintenance, different things of this nature, maintaining your pool. And a lot of folks, this is something that you appreciate. But I think when it becomes a little extreme, when the folks leading this HOA start to abuse their power, overstep the boundaries, and really kind of minding other folks' business a little bit too much, it could be frustrating. And not only that, now we're crossing over into contentious categories when you start to talk about foreclosing on someone's home for something uh, like not cutting your grass or picking one or two weeds, right? So why are HOAs becoming more and more aggressive as of recently? Like everyone else, they need money. They need money and they need it quicker to maintain the HOA for things like landscaping, community maintenance, repairs, staff, amenities, major furniture repairs. Those expenses have gone up significantly and HOAs are in a pinch. And the quickest way to get to that revenue is holding people accountable and, charging fees quicker, but then also collecting those fees quicker, which require going through the foreclosure process in most cases. So when homeowners don't pay their dues, the HOA has less money coming in while their expenses continue to go up. So HOA isn't just chasing homeowners because it wants the money. In some communities, the HOA itself may be running out of money altogether, which is an interesting and relatively new concept. And I'm thinking to myself that that's a maintenance problem, a financial oversight concern. And as a result, some of these homeowners and these community members are suffering because it sounds like some of the money is mismanaged in some cases. I'm not saying all cases, but it's important to understand how your HOA is using those funds as well. And you have to keep in mind if an HOA forecloses on your home, or before they foreclose on your home, an HOA can put a lien on your home for unpaid dues, which is a major headache to go through the process to get that off. If dues go unpaid for too long, an HOA can file to have a lien put on your home. And a lien is essentially a debt or a due of owing someone money. Most of the time people get mortgages and it has the first lien position on their home, but a lien is essentially a due or owing someone else or an entity money before your home can sell. The most common lien on most folks' home is their primary mortgage. But a contractor can put a lien on your home. If you get a home equity line of credit, that can be another type of lien on your home. And believe it or not, the HOA, if they go through the proper channels, can also put a lien on your home, which hinders you selling your home in the future. If a homeowner doesn't pay their HOA assessments, the association may be able to place a lien against the property. Depending on the state and the laws, the HOA, the HOA governing documents would allow for them to do that, and it would outline the process. According to some data also mentioned in the article from BNU Tech data, 284,000 HOA liens were filed in 2025. That's approximately one lien every 90 seconds, 8.6 higher than in 2024. That is significant. That is significant and quite interesting. So listen to this. Most of these HOAs are underfunded. The article goes on to say that uh, a late 2020, a late, blah, 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 a late 2025 report showed that 74% of associations governed communities were less than 70% funded. That means that many HOAs don't have enough money sitting in their reserves to comfortably cover expected major expenses, repairs, and capital projects. So, how do these HOAs get their money? They get it by charging you fees or collecting fees much more quickly or being very quick to fine you for something that violates the HOA dues. So it's interesting. Think about these communities where it's governed by an HOA, but you have delays in roof repairs, roads, pools, clubhouse maintenance, all these different things where things start to decline, all because the HOA doesn't have the money to invest in these projects and maintain these communities. Another big point in this article is insurance. Insurance has gotten much more expensive than it ever has in the past. And as most of you probably know, with if you own a home, your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance, insurance is ridiculous. It's set there hoping that you never have to use it. But even if you never use it, insurance seems to go up faster and every year. And HOAs are also feeling the tail end of this as well, which really, really is putting a strain on their finances. But the part that caught me and that made this most interesting to me is how these HOAs are underfunded. This means to me that they miscalculated how much they truly needed to maintain the community, promised um, responsibilities and expectations that they can't maintain, or they're mismanaging those funds, which is interesting to me because the folks who suffer are the folks inside of the HOA. And again, I will say there are some HOAs that do a fantastic job, which is why doing your research, talking to the community, getting the disclosures, working with a real estate professional uh, is very important. And there are also some HOAs that don't manage that money or manage the community responsibilities well. So the article goes on to say that 93% of surveyed associations reported higher property and casualty insurance costs and premiums recently. More than half saw increases between 11 and 25%. Around 10% reported increases of more than 100% in insurance. In insurance, which is just ridiculous, man. I mean, outside of the frustration reading this article because you know, I'm a homeowner and you think about how much it costs to maintain your home, right? All the things that go along with it. You have a sense of, I thought my costs were going to be this and I expect them to be this way unless I have a say so in them changing. But it also goes to show you the wider economic pressure and the cost of how just expensive things have gotten. Now, including even with insurance, including with insurance. So this is something to also keep in mind and to make sure you pay extra attention to when you're shopping for a home, to make sure you understand the what that HOA is covering, where the money is going, why are things so expensive, and how long and when can we expect an evaluation to make sure that the money is being managed, right? Very, very important questions. So, in addition to all that, this could contribute to the affordability concern that I've been talking about in some of my other videos. Now, folks don't only have to be concerned about how much the house costs and their mortgage payments and their insurance, because these things are required if you're getting a loan on a property. Now they have to be concerned about exorbitant HOA fees, right? Mismanaged funds, surprise increases outside of taxes, right? Because those are probably always going to change year to year, and it can be frustrating. It contributes further to the affordability concern that most folks are already dealing with, which is why many folks opt to look for communities that don't even have HOAs. You avoid all of these concerns, right? But some folks want to be in communities with HOAs because they don't want the headache of dealing with all of the maintenance issues. It's kind of like living in an apartment. Most of the burdensome, tedious tasks are taken care of by a third party, but it can come with cons. So make sure, in addition to when you're calculating how much you can afford, the mortgage payment isn't your only cost. Make sure that you also calculate and include the cost of your HOA dues monthly or yearly. It's very important. So another thing to think about is, why would an HOA be so quick to foreclose on a home? And think about it this way. Ideally, the HOA dues are meant to maintain the community, right? For those who don't pay their HOA dues, the whole community suffers. Ideally, HOAs collect dues, use that money to maintain the community, keep up values. And if some folks aren't paying those dues, the whole community suffers. Projects are delayed, repairs are delayed. HOAs also have employees. They're having and working with contractors. All of these things get delayed when folks don't pay their dues. So these bills still have to get paid. Insurance have to get paid. Bills still have to get paid. The homeowners who are not paying may end up subsidizing, I'm sorry, the homeowners who are paying may end up subsidizing others, right? And no one wants this. So HOAs are incentivized to go through the process quicker, sooner rather than later, to not only maintain that community, but also these bills have to get paid. These bills have to get paid. And where's that money coming from? It's coming from the community. So the quicker that they can get their hands on this money, especially from folks who aren't paying their dues, the quicker they can continue to do their jobs, complete their projects, and upkeep the community. So they're incentivized for not only their personal pay, but to maintain the community. I think the part that most folks, I think, don't necessarily take into account when they try to contest and not pay their dues, I think that everybody should pay their bills and pay their dues, um, is that when you don't pay your HOA dues for whatever reason, it puts a burden not only on the HOA, but it puts a burden on your neighborhood and the community, because the HOA is not able to maintain and pay for what's needed to keep that community looking nice, well kept, and pay for the insurance. Um, the community suffers. Other people live in that community, and it could really be an eyesore if things aren't kept up well, because the HOAs are lacking the funds because people won't pay their dues, right? So these HOAs are incentivized to not only collect dues, but to initiate the process to get the money uh, via the foreclosure process. So what does this all mean? In conclusion, the article essentially highlights how HOAs are feeling the pinch of the economy as well. They are strapped for cash as well. Um, whether because they are underfunded, mismanaging funds, or things are just getting exorbitantly more expensive. I encourage you to read this article. It's very, very interesting. But HOAs have always kind of been a frustrating point for most folks who are a part of those communities. But this article was really interesting because um, I think folks should be very aware and cautious if you are a homeowner in a community, to make sure to keep your dues current, because these HOAs are moving to foreclosure faster than ever before, which is wild. And if you're shopping for a home, make sure you work with a real estate professional. Get the right documents, ask the right questions, so you know the additional costs that are coming along with buying a home. Because no one wants to be foreclosed on. And that process is really a headache to go through or to try to fix if the ball gets rolling. So I'm curious, have you heard of anybody in your community getting foreclosed on for an HOA due violation? What is the most ridiculous thing that your HOA charged you for? Let me know in the comments. With that, thank you all for watching this video. I'll see you all in the next one, and take care.